Intelligent storage allows you a very quick mean time to innocence, right? Because the storage will tell you what's wrong with it, right? The second part of the app data gap is actually recovery and availability. And what I mean by that is traditionally, whenever we look at storage systems, whenever we look at backup systems, the recovery times and the backup windows are never able to be met. A new technology will come along, they'll be met for a certain amount of time, and then they go away, right? Typically, a recovery window is around 6 to 7 hours. A backup window is around 10 to 12 hours, right? To give you an example, if you take a 2 petabyte filer, a NAS system, take a guess how long it takes to back that thing up. A couple of our customers tell us it takes about 2 weeks to back up 2 petabytes worth of data. Right? That's a single filer that is sitting in a customer's environment. Now imagine a 2 petabyte SAN with multi-tiered applications on top of that, and you want to protect that. How would you go about doing that? If storage doesn't have hints that it provides to the ecosystem that is controlling its backup, that's where the integration and the intimacy comes in. That's where the knowledge exchange between storage systems properties and orchestration properties come in to close that gap, right? And those are some of the things in conjunction with Veeam, what I'm going to be focusing on today, which allows us to close this app data gap, right? So from the first part that I described on intelligence, if you look, and so a lot of the storage platforms that HPE is selling these days, you can have 3PAR, you have Nimble, you have our Apollo servers platforms along with a big data orchestration layer sitting on top, which is what we call our blue data technologies. Almost all of these systems are sending data into a service that we run free for our customers. It's one of the largest infrastructure management SaaS services out there. It goes out free with all our products. What these systems are doing is they're sending about 80,000 instrumentation data points into our big data lake at HPE, at the InfoSight data lake. And what we do is we run a lot of deep learning models on top of them. We have a team of about 35 data scientists that's constantly looking into all these logs that are coming in, and we're cleaning them. We're putting statistical models on top of them. We're putting regression models on top of them. And what that is telling us is how are our systems behaving in the field, what our systems are interacting with in the field. And what we have found out is that about 50 to 55% of the problems actually exist outside of the storage stack. Sometimes it's as simple as a misconfigured frame on a Brocade switch. Sometimes it's a down port or a flopping port on an Ethernet switch. Oftentimes it's memory which is misconfigured on ESX servers, right? All of these things result in application downtime or in a bad experience at the application level. By having these data points come into us, they serve as the foundation pillars of intelligence. Because what we do using these data points is that proactively, 86% of the times, we are the ones reaching out to our customers. We open 86% of our support tickets to our customers, typically looking at features or things that are deviating from the normal in their systems environment, and automatically opening a case, talking to a customer, getting to a resolution, and then closing that case. Another good feature of intelligent storage is, and I apologize for using this word, it results in a lot less stupid conversation. What is a stupid conversation? Hey, send me this log file. Turn this thing off and then send me a new log file. Change this setting and then send me another log file, right? Proactively, we are already collecting these log files, cleaning them up. So when we come up for a conversation with our customers, it's a very intelligent conversation. We know exactly what the problem is. How did you arrive at this place? A very simple example of this exercise is a typical customer, actually a joint customer, Veeam plus Nimble, ran into an application issue where their SQL Server latency suddenly went through the roof. Right? It was operating at a sub-millisecond latency, great transactional times. It was a system that schedules their trucks. They're a large logistical company. It schedules their trucks. Suddenly that system went offline because the latency started timing out. They picked up the phone. Obviously, the network guy was the first to be blamed. Storage guy was next in line. And when that happened, all they did was, through the InfoSight portal, they pulled out a report saying, look, the application latency from the virtual machine to the ESX is this much. From here to the switch is this much. And from here to storage is this much. It's landing on this particular run. And we're turning it around in sub-millisecond time. So it's not storage, and neither it's the network. Something else went wrong. But because these 80,000 probes are not only being collected by us from our systems. They're also being collected by your VMware system, and we're cross-referencing them. They're also collected from Veeam APIs, and we're cross-referencing them. So what had actually happened is ESX had load balanced a virtual machine from server A to server B. Server B just had less memory, so it started to thrash. And as a result of that, it became a quality of service issue at the VM level. We were able to troubleshoot that in about 45 seconds once the call came in. This issue typically lasts about a 48-day to 95-day resolution. What's going on? Because you're going to collect network logs, you're going to collect VMware logs, and then you're going to collect support logs, and you're going to collect switching logs, and try to troubleshoot that information. So that is what I mean by intelligent storage. The conversation in intelligent storage is raised above table stake features. Dedupe, compression, encryption, snapshots, clones, SSDs, flash, NAND, NVMe, these are table stake features. We need to talk about one level above. And we need to start building intelligent features that relate to applications, to how applications perform and behave, and the system needs to react to that. So that's what we mean by the intelligence era. And it requires a lot of infrastructure plumbing at the back end, which we provide as a service to our customers in form of a SaaS service called InfoSight. So that's one feature of the intelligent storage platform, right? So the second feature of the intelligent storage platform is how to figure out what data to place at what tier, right? And this is where we leverage a lot of our ISV partners, Veeam being one of the primary one of them, right? So what do I mean by optimal placement of data? So as we're collecting this information, about 80 to 85,000 data points from 3PAR, from Nimble, from Apollo servers, from Blue Data devices, what it allows us to do is to create something called data lineage. What is data lineage? InfoSight can literally tell you where a LUN started and where a LUN ended up at. What that basically means is primary data served up to mission-critical applications. You took a snapshot, and then you took a bunch of those snapshots. Then you backed up your snapshots. Then you archived your snapshots. Then you restored your snapshots for test and dev systems. How do you track all of that back and forth? You track that, again, using a concept called data lineage, which in olden years used to call data lifecycle management, which never went anywhere. That's why I avoided that term. The new term that we use for that is data lineage, because it allows you how different pieces of information, how this sort of fractured storage infrastructure, which is just right now talking about gigabytes and petabytes, how does it relate to actual application constructs that you're using? And then based on availability guarantees, based on performance guarantees, we come back and advise customers, where should you be running this infrastructure? Should you be running that in the public cloud? Should you be running that on-prem? How do you move data between public and private seamlessly through control plane management policies? And that's what this second component of intelligence. Because, and we don't leave it to an Excel sort of a cost exercise where a bunch of ROIs are being compared. The difference is you've got to change the concept or change the discussions from gigabytes and petabytes to application constructs that at the end of the day drive business outcomes. So that's what I call the second component of storage. So these are the two main sort of descriptor or what I call first level design principles on top of which we build our platform, right? So what is this platform? At the very basic of it, what we do is we take a customer example, and the customer example could be a business outcome, right? Nike is in the business of making shoes. Nordstrom is a business of big retail. They're not in the business of managing IT systems. They're definitely not in the business of managing storage. At least they are right now, but we need to simplify that for our customers. So at the end of the day, a business problem is translated into an application. That application is going to drive a particular outcome for a customer. Now you take that outcome and that application, and then you break it down into what we call a workload. A workload is comprised of storage, networking, and compute systems. Could be using a couple other comparables, right? So for each workload, we need to have a workload optimized platform, right? A workload optimized platform gives us a design center around which a particular product is focused, right? And that allows us to drive the best possible outcome for that particular workload. The key over here is data mobility, that all systems on-prem all the way up into the cloud and back should be able to seamlessly exchange data using revisioned version of APIs so your tooling doesn't break down. As simple as that, right? So when you look at this slide, it automatically you can start to translate the sort of the common names that you hear for our products. Mission critical means 3-PAR, means the focus of 3-PAR is at 7 nines of availability, uptime guarantees. The focus of 3-PAR is not low-end storage. The focus of 3-PAR is not deduplication and compression. The focus is uptime, 7 nines of availability, massive throughput levels, active-active architecture, transactional customer-facing applications, right? Then you go down the road, you start to see general purpose. What does general purpose mean? General purpose means test and dev, semi-production. That means if general purpose storage goes down, people are going to get scolded. They're not going to get fired. When mission critical storage goes down, you're probably going to get fired, right? So that's the difference, right? A very simple difference, right? So on general purpose storage, you have, from our side, you have nimble all-flash arrays, nimble hybrid arrays. What these systems do, they focus on best price performance and data efficiency, right? It's active-passive architecture. Failover takes around 5 to 6 seconds. 99% of the customers are okay with it because it's general purpose storage. For a given dollar value, this is the most efficient storage, highly focused on dedupe and compression, 6 to 1, 7 to 1 data reduction guarantees, but 8 to 9 gigabytes a second of throughput, right? Again, the design center is general purpose. The design center is efficiency, right? Then secondary storage, nimble hybrids fall into that. Our store once disk to disk archiving product falls into that, right? But across the board, you can seamlessly exchange data either through data lifecycle based management tools, data management tools like Veeam, or you can use our own APIs to construct your orchestration, right? And then big data and AI. We have orchestration capabilities, and here we run our Apollo servers with what I call Blue Data Software. This is a company we just recently acquired. What it allows you to do, again, it allows you to focus on business outcomes around analytics. It doesn't ask you to build and administer analytics yourself. You can literally take a Blue Data cluster and put it on Apollo servers, and what it allows you to do is to set up an entire data instrumentation analytic pipeline all the way from managed Kubernetes nodes down to Spark streaming systems, running NoSQL databases, all in a single pipeline orchestrated through a click of a button. So again, you can focus on business outcomes and not on plumbing underneath, right? And then all of our platforms are fully stitched to the public cloud. You can use Veeam's layer to stitch to the public cloud, or you can use Veeam orchestration to let us move that data into the public cloud on your behalf. So again, what the common theme across these systems is, all of these systems have these signatures, data points, learning engines, control points built into them. And that is what we call our SaaS service InfoSight that runs on top of it. And we call it the Global Intelligence Engine. It collects all the data from applications, networks, storage systems, correlates them together, and gives you a holistic view, right? And all the systems ship default enabled with this particular service. One of the biggest things that it does for us is it allows us to very quickly generate context around a workload. Because once you start to generate context around a workload, you know then exactly what to do and how important that particular workload is for your protection, for your availability, what profile you want to build around it, right? Then at the same time, we build API-based access on top of it. But what we are conscious of the fact that different APIs appeal to different personas. Developers might want application orchestration APIs into the system and would want to hide complete sort of storage APIs underneath that. DevOps people might want to like Ansible, Puppet, Chef APIs exposed all the way up there, and maybe not so much around application layer APIs on top of it, right? So the context of that, again, is translated for us by constantly instrumenting our systems and providing that value back to our customers. So what do you store? How much of it do you store? Do you really need to store it in the first place? Those are the 3 basic questions that I feel every storage system should answer, but the discussion really have not progressed beyond gigabytes and petabytes, right? So that's the focus of an intelligent data platform, whilst making sure that table stake features are always available. So now if I take that sort of a visionary slide and actually break it down into what's on the truck and what goes out the door, these are the physical incarnations of those systems, right? So you've got Hpe 3-PAR, which is our mission-critical platform, focuses on availability, throughput, and resiliency. You've got Nimble, which is focused on highly efficient systems around dedupe compression and giving you best price performance for a given price point. We've got secondary storage system with test and dev orchestration managers built into it. These are our archival systems, which are completely connected into a public cloud. And then you've got our Blue Data software set of suites that sits on our data-driven Apollo servers to give you big data as a service with a very nice marketplace of applications such as TensorFlow, Kubernetes control planes, Kafka, Jupyter, Spark, streaming, batch processing. All of those are one-click deploy and managed completely by this clustered software. All of these products and their application layers are 100% connected up into the public cloud. Again, through APIs, you can control that orchestration, or you can control that through any management capability, Veeam being one of them on top of that. Underneath that, I say as a service, because we have another SKU, which is what we call our financial services offering. It's called Hpe Green Lake, where you can consume all of these platforms, including the intelligent service called InfoSight, as a service, as sort of a CapEx model. So taking one click further down, so coming from the concept of intelligence, building out sort of the vision of what an intelligent platform looks like, sort of breaking it down into its components of products that we use. Now, how do I make it work together into what I call an intelligent fabric, right? So the intelligent fabric in front of you is basically you can imagine any customer environment where you might be running customer-facing production workloads on a transactional system, which is highly available on an active-active architecture. Depending on your spending power, depending on your needs, you might be running Nimble all-flash systems in that production environment as well, right? But what stitches this fabric together is a data mobility story that carries your snapshots and application-consistent data copies from one platform to the next so that it can be reused on any of those platforms. That's the advantage of it. They're seamlessly stitched together. And the stitching together, this mobility layer, can be controlled by Veeam on top of it. So currently, if I were to give a stat here, like together, I mean, I was just talking to our business folks. Together, we have done about $100 million worth of business together, right? One of the biggest sort of things that we go after is what we call a data domain takeout, where our customers are using hybrid flash systems as backup target with Veeam software controlling and orchestrating the entire plane. But what you see in this intelligent fabric is one thing, is that the second cloud service that we run over here is what I call Hpe Cloud Volumes. Again, this is not a virtual machine that you install in a public cloud. What this is an actual service where you swipe a credit card, go get yourself a volume, which is fully plumbed into AWS or Azure at the same time. So you have data sovereignty and control at your behalf. When you provision this particular volume, it automatically pairs up with any of your systems on-prem and replicates and exchanges data between them. So data mobility in and out of a hybrid cloud situation is completely orchestrated and solved for you as a managed service. Again, that's the third feature of the intelligent fabric, that it understands that you just plumbed the system to a public cloud. Inside the public cloud, you want to exchange the data from a particular volume. No robocopy, no rcopy, no particular professional services to be built around it. The fabric just works. You can put policies together via APIs or via a Veeam management layer on top of it. The advantage is now you can do test and dev on-prem. You can do test and dev between on-prem and public cloud. Because compute is stateless. You can kill a compute container or a virtual machine on-prem, and you can restart it in the cloud. Data has gravity. It doesn't move. So the concept, the main design feature of the smart fabric is that data should follow the workload. Customers should deploy the workload where it makes business sense for them. They should not worry about whether the data will be made available to it or not. The smart fabric takes care of that. Right? And again, from an orchestration perspective, you can build in policy-based orchestration on top of that, or you can build workload-based orchestration on top of that. Should you want to build workload-based orchestration, the Global Intelligence Engine, InfoSight, helps you to do that. You want to build data policy-based orchestration on top of that, you can use state-of-the-art application like Veeam to be able to control those fabrics together. But the stitching part is done by us on your behalf. So shifting gears from the fabric onto the availability of the fabric, typically what we've seen is, unplanned outages and restore times become extremely important. A lot of the customers, or service providers especially, pride themselves on the fact that should an outage occur, how quickly they come back into business. One of our customers, ServiceNow, actually pays the customer back for the amount of time ServiceNow is down. Right? That requires ServiceNow to come back up into business very, very quickly. So a very good combination. That's why a lot of our customers, that's why this business has ramped up so fast between Nimble hybrid arrays and Veeam together, is because restore times are of the order of minutes. So imagine an Oracle database up to 2 to 2.5 terabytes, which is being backed up, now can be backed up in a number of minutes, can be restored in a number of minutes. Right? That's the advantage of using a flash hybrid system as your backup target, combined with heterogeneous Veeam-based software on top of that. Right? So integrated solution typically allows you 83% sort of smaller backup windows, right? 93% faster data recovery. These are amazing things for customers. Right? Look at the SLAs. Typically, there's a perception that if you put a Nimble system or a flash-oriented system in your backup environment, it's going to be a hell of a lot expensive. But what a lot of times what happens is that system administrators and customers don't realize the other thing that they gain as a result of that. So first of all, it's not more expensive than a disk-to-disk target. It's really not. Right? Prices of flash has come down dramatically, and dedupe technology has advanced way past that. Right? But then having a per core licensing based backup software, which is really unique. Veeam offers you that. So you're licensing Veeam per core rather than on the amount of data consumed. Right? So you license Veeam per core, and then you bring it a really, really fast backup target like Nimble, you can really turn SLAs of your organizations around. So rather than saying this DR is going to take 19 hours, 20 hours, it becomes a matter of minutes from that point onwards. One of our customers, Knights Transportation, again, the same customer where we troubleshot the virtual machine. It's not that they have a bad environment, it's just that they have pretty good examples all the time. So the other example that they gave us is, we were monitoring their systems, because with InfoSight we monitor all our customer systems. We noticed that their thermal sensors were going off randomly. They have a data center in Arizona, and they have a head office in the Bay Area. And what happens was that we were noticing that the thermal sensor was going off, and then we check, and then our support engineers that manage that, this is a free service that we have, they looked at news feeds, and there was a fire in the area. So we called them up in New York and in San Francisco, dude, your data center is on fire. They're like, no, it's not. I'm like, no, it's on fire. Your thermal sensors are going off. Here's a news clipping of your zip code, which we pulled out from Salesforce.com because we have a customer record. Right? That's called intelligent, proactive monitoring of a customer. This customer also happened to run Veeam with Nimble hybrid arrays, HF80s and HF40s. As a result of the data center being burned down, God bless them, they were able to restore from their secondary data center in under 2 hours a petabyte worth of footprint. Now imagine running that on a disk-to-disk target. It's going to take you days to come back up in business, right? So that's the advantage. That's the advantage of using flash-oriented technologies that understand your applications, that are able to tweak reads and writes based on how we have learned your profile, right? That's the power of InfoSight, together with a recovery technology that is able to drive a hybrid system like Nimble in order to give you those recoveries. And 83% faster backup windows, 93% faster recovery, 78% low downtime. You know what this results into? This results into a lot of happy customers. These are Nimble plus Veeam customers from around the world. And that dude right in the middle, the one with the patches on the forehead, that's Knights Transportation in Arizona, right? So on that note, I'm gonna stop boring you with facts that I've collected over historical time data, and let's go into a live discussion with one of our customers. We have Dante here from Island, and I'm going to let Dante come up and introduce himself.
Thanks, Omer. How do you follow that, right? I'm still amped up, and we're like 30 minutes in. Great job, man. So my name's Dante Orsini. I run business development for Island. For those of you that are not familiar with us, we're a Veeam cloud service provider, and we've been partnered with Veeam for 9 years now, but for us, we've really been focused on delivering three things, right? A global, secure infrastructure as a service platform that's designed to host business critical applications, disaster recovery as a service, as well as backup as a service. But if you check us out in the news, everybody knows us as the DR backup folks, right? But the irony to that is the lion's share of our revenue actually comes from business critical workloads, right? So, our journey together with Veeam started so long ago, but what was interesting is to see when we actually started to leverage Nimble for Island was a really big shift, right? Because we were using a different storage platform back in the day, but what's really different about us is we are very, very... Isn't it interesting? I'll take that up.
That's Apple checking in. It's intelligent as well.
There you go. You got InfoSight on your phone.
That's how our support engineers interrupt you.
They thought you were going to pass out because you moved to hold yourself up. But from our perspective, as a cloud provider, we're obviously operating at scale, right? So we face the same challenges that customers face. We weren't brilliant overnight. We weren't automating, orchestrating everything overnight. But to deliver, we have to be able to execute, right? We've got to be able to deliver better, faster, more cost efficient than our customers, or there's no reason to leverage us. But what was unique for our journey is in this effort to automate and orchestrate as much as possible, we also saw a big shift in what was happening with customers, right? For better, for worse, they had visibility into their local environments, and you talk to a sysadmin and they look at cloud, it's like, I can't really see behind the curtain. Do I really trust that? So we got it really early that we have got to lead with transparency and let people know exactly what's happening in the infrastructure, and also give them the tools to control their own destiny, right? So we started by building our own platform that's completely globally distributed. We're gathering data just like you are with InfoSight. We're using a lot of the same technologies, these big distributed databases with all sorts of analytical engines. But the goal was to provide a better service, right? And starting off with an API to build our platform was critical to us. That means that you could love our UI, but if you're technical, you can program against it, right? So when we started to leverage Nimble, it was huge for us because we were all about how can we provide that same level of visibility and transparency to the consumer, right? So being able to consume those APIs from Nimble's perspective obviously is great to accomplishing that end customer outcome. But operationally, right, that's massive gains for us. Right. Because knowing that we've got all the intelligence of what's happening with HPE globally on that storage platform, regardless of how much storage Island consumes globally, right? That allows us to really benefit from the predictive analytics side of it.
So Dan, how are you? So Dante, how are you using using the Nimble and the Veeam as best of breed building blocks? What are some of the services that you using the APIs and the toolkits that you've developed that you are now offering as services to your customers using these building blocks?
Yeah, so for us, it started with actually leveraging Veeam's APIs to integrate Veeam into our core platform, long before we were leveraging Nimble, right? This goes back like almost 9 years, right? So we want to make sure if somebody deployed a workload anywhere in the world, they didn't have to worry about backup, it just happened. But again, getting back to transparency and building trust, we wanted to give customers the ability to consume those backups, take a look at them, do restores on their own, right? Fast forward a bit, Veeam started to really focus on cloud as a route to market, and wanted to make it really easy for their customers to get a copy of their data offsite. Right? So you hear all about the 3-2-1 rule. Well, what a brilliant move, right? Cloud Connect Backup. For those of you that aren't familiar with it, it's built into VBR, right? All you need is basically a repository with a cloud provider. It's real simple. Everything's done over SSL. So the admin can actually set it up in a minute. And next thing you know, they've got policy where they're sending a copy of their data offsite. Personally, I didn't think that was going to be a big deal. I was wrong, right? So obviously that's taken off like wildfire, and then Veeam continued to innovate on top of that. Being able to actually integrate replication, right, for true disaster recovery. You'll hear a lot of people talk about, what are you doing for DR? Oh, I got my backups. Well, I don't think people have the tolerance for that anymore, right? I mean, so to your point, being able to do fast restores is great. But if you've just got a whole bunch of data sitting somewhere and you have no understanding of the relationship between the virtual machines and the applications and the network, you can't expect that you're just going to overnight say, okay, I'm going to take all that stuff and somehow I'm going to figure out how to bring it online. Right? So taking the next step, leveraging replication, so now you have an understanding, you've built a DR plan around it, you can test it very easily, right? This is where we started to generate a lot of opportunity because we started to innovate on top of the platform.
Right.
We wanted to give customers the ability to actually, take the burden out of this. Anytime you talk to somebody about disaster recovery, yeah, we got a DR plan. Great. When's the last time you tested it?
Never.
Yeah, well, we were going to test it last month,
Right.
but we ran into some delays. And okay, what was the last successful one before that? Well, we ran one a year ago, and it was
Right.
So the challenge here is I've got a 16-year-old. If his phone slows down, the world's going to end. That's what we're all up against, right? I mean, so now availability is like table stakes. We call this, building a platform or helping a business become resilient, right?
Right.
So from our perspective, you're only as good as your last test. Who wants to test? Nobody wants to test, right? So we built a platform that basically allows people to build these run books, click a button to test them, click a button to fail them over. That's a great start,
Right.
but they still got to click the button.
Absolutely.
Okay, so kind of like you're doing some predictive analysis and providing recommendations, we're taking a step further. We're adding a scheduler to that.
We want to get to a phone. We want to get to a button, but we're at a phone call right now. We call back.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So the point being is, if we can help relieve them of that burden, right? Say, okay, I've got this one run book. Let's call it my tier 1 applications. Could be tier 2, could be dev, whatever, right? Point is, here's a profile that I want to test. I'm going to click a button and say, okay, I want to test this weekly, monthly, whatever the frequency is that you want. Oh, by the way, because this is going to land on a cloud that's already got a whole bunch of security and compliance services built into it, I'm going to tick another box. Why don't I go ahead and run a bunch of non-intrusive tests on a copy of my data rather than doing it in my production data center, which also doesn't happen.
And what it adds is the combination of the technologies adds a lot of velocity to these operations. Right?
That's right.
Right. So Dante, from Island's perspective, using the Veeam and sort of the Nimble combination, what are some of the things that you saw were possible that were not possible before? Like from a velocity perspective, from an agility perspective, as you brought these services out to market?
Yeah, so I think the integration obviously helped us, really tighten up the backup timeframes, right?
Right.
Also improves restoration timeframes. We were such a fan of the hybrid array that we've adopted all flash arrays for certain use cases. So we're maintaining various, 2 basic profiles.
Right.
So table stakes, our general purpose is your flash accelerated, right? Our mission critical would be your, all flash.
All flash arrays.
Yeah. So having that integration is super powerful. The one thing I want to touch on that you said very early on that I think is so powerful, all of our guys in engineering, they loathe having to work with other vendors. Like if we have to put a support case in as a cloud provider, we're dead. Right? It's rough. If our folks can't figure it out, and we're at the mercy of a vendor, we're in a lot of pain at that point, right? So, I won't say some of the folks, they're not obviously in this room, right? But point being is your example of, all right, we realize you have a problem, send me your logs. Oh, I mean, you talk to anybody in our cloud operations team, they want to put a bullet in their head, right? So anytime we talk to some of our vendors that may be focused on the hypervisor, we'll actually, that's our biggest point of contention with them. Right. So to say that you guys are opening 86% of your cases and preventing the stupid questions, you have no idea. Our CTO couldn't be here today or he'd be up here. Right, biggest fan that you guys have got globally. Right, makes a huge difference for us.
It's all through intelligence and predictive support, right? I mean, pre-processing the logs, understanding, and then also it's the automation that is built around it. Automatically being able to open a case, detect a symptom, and then being able to close the case automatically as well, right? And then being able to escalate it if our automated system cannot get it, right? A simple rule of thumb that we follow is if you've got a if something happens twice, the second time it should be automated. It's just as simple as that, right? So obviously the first time, and one of the things that we've, like a lot of the times when we've worked with Island and they've helped us troubleshoot a lot of our systems as well, every time we open a case where we have to do the debate, we typically generate a signature of it. And once we generate a signature, we run that across the entire 38,000 sort of install base that we have around the world, and then proactively start fixing their problems should this reoccur, or does this symptom manifest itself somewhere else as well. And it's all the way up into application understanding, right? So can you walk us through how, sort of as a service provider or as an active service provider customer, what has the impact of InfoSight been in your day-to-day operations?
Yeah, so this part's huge for us because if you can think about the day in the life of a cloud provider, right, we're trying to deliver the best self-service experience we can, right, and support that. So that means that we have no earthly idea in reality what someone's doing with our platform.
Right.
Right? You can have somebody running dev test on one hand, hosting a business critical workload in another, and then you've got somebody that's actually looking to fail over to you, right? So having visibility is huge for us. And also making sure that we can consume a lot of that data via an API. So now, if you can imagine understanding the trends of what's happening globally with your customer base, part of the DR conundrum is making sure that you've got the capacity available to actually deliver for a customer. Right? So when you look at this, understanding the load on the storage and being able to correlate that with the workload type, and then also correlate it with other analytics that we're pulling out of other data sources, like, oh, hey, there's a massive storm coming up the East Coast. How many customers do we have that have DR services along that whole eastern coastline? Hey, what's the impact of actually getting in front of this and failing them over now? Right? All that stuff allows us to make decisions much quicker.
So any of you guys have questions for Dante? Just wanted to give everybody a chance because I'm monopolizing his time. I think they're all going to buy it. We're set.